wanted to take a look tonight at the KDE Plasma 5.18 release. I've been wanting to do a video on this for a while, but it's really just it's been a lot of churn and just new things being added, and I really wanted to just give it a chance to settle down a little bit before I took a look at it. But before I get started, we had some sad news today. I wanted to just say heartfelt sorrow and condolences to the family and friends of Mark Greaves, who, if you don't know, was a developer on the Peppermint distribution, and just an all-around good guy, just someone that I didn't know very well, but someone I chatted with in YouTube chat mainly most of the time, and just seemed like a really super guy. And obviously the folks in the Peppermint community really valued everything he did, and he just seemed to be, like I said, just a really, really great guy. And so I'm very sorry to hear about what happened. And like I said, just thoughts and best wishes to family and friends. And I'm not sure if there'll be, there's not a lot of details at the moment, other than that he was just hospitalized for a while and obviously succumbed to some type of illness. So yeah, very sad. And he will be sorely missed. And yeah, so sorry to start off on a sad note, but I think it's important that we honor people like him for the work he's done. You know, he always gave of himself, and that's a really powerful thing. And I think it touched a lot of people. So, Mark, we will miss you. All right. So I want to go back through, and what I'm going to do here is a couple things. First, KDE Neon comes with the out-of-the-box configuration for Plasma, and it's not exactly the way I run Plasma, so I'm just going to make a couple quick changes to my desktop so that I can get it to look the way that I'm used to. And because otherwise, I don't know about you guys, but it's just it's a little, I guess just a little confusing or kind of off-putting in a way to try to use something you're so used to it being a certain way. I'm used to Kubuntu mainly, and so a couple things I don't love about the default layout here is that, you know, this light theme is just a little too light, and I don't mind light windows, but the panel here, the menu, that type of stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and just change that look. So I'm going to go to Plasma Style, Breeze Dark. That's going to give me a dark panel, dark menu. I also already changed the workspace behavior from single click to double click just because I'm so used to that. And there's probably other things in here I'll get back to, but for now, a couple things. I really prefer the icons only task manager. I'm going to switch to that. I also like to make this panel a little bit bigger. So we're going to go up to about there. And I'll get back to that in a second. And that kind of gets me, well, desktop, that's another thing I always change. These mouse actions, I really don't like middle click paste, and I don't want to switch desktops with my mouse scroll. Get rid of that. And I also, for the desktop as well, I want this to be just a desktop. I don't really want the icons there. I know, I'm weird. Everybody has their own preferences, right? And so this is my sort of default stock layout that looks clean to me and just kind of works the way I would like it to. All right. So let's look at some of these notes here. Let me get the chat back up as well. Sorry, Necromancer. I'm a slow man. And I get the rush icon. And also, yeah, it's also very sad that we lost Neil Peart this week as well. Truly one of my favorite musicians. I mean, Rush is such an amazing band, and you know, what can you say about the guy in terms of the impact he had on drumming and just the world of music, Rush in general, but also Neil himself, and just a fantastic, fantastic guy in general. It appeared to be. He's a little reclusive, which I could understand. The idea of being that famous and always having people want more of you, and so he was a very interesting person. If you haven't either seen his work or you haven't seen any interviews with him, there's a couple of really good documentaries on Rush, so Neil will also be greatly missed as well. So my plan for this is to just look through the This Week in KDE notes, these blog posts that Nate posts. He does a really good job of covering high level and then some lower level things, and it's a good mix because it's giving you information that is sort of useful and things you can actually look at. And I mean, you could obviously go and follow a lot of the the development logs and the commits and stuff like that. I'm not going to get into the weeds like that. I really just want to look at the high level stuff. Like I said, I wanted to do this for a while, and I hadn't done it yet because as these were coming out, I was watching and there'd be, a small feature here, a small feature there. And I just wanted to let it get to a point where I felt like there was enough to cover to do a stream like this. So if you don't know, Plasma 5, right now, the release version of Plasma is 5.17.5. And the next release is 5.18, and that's going to be an LTS release. And the goal of that is that it will be in LTS distros like Kubuntu 20.04. So there's been a lot of attention paid to bug fixes and quality of life improvements, not going too crazy on some of the features they're adding. Although I will say the KDE team is usually not very shy, and they're certainly not afraid of adding new things. So there's still a lot in here. And that's great because it's sort of what we come to expect from Plasma. If you run, let's say, Kubuntu with the backports enabled, Rick Mills does a really good job of keeping up with the latest release versions. And so you'll be getting these new versions, and there's always at least some small thing in each one. So they're good about balancing bug fixes, quality of life improvements, stuff that's happening under the covers, but then also a few user-facing features as well. And if you remember, in 5.17, one of the big things they added was the new notification system. And so the notification system was completely rewritten. It had been not so great. And now it's a much more robust system. It has things like Do Not Disturb and some integrated aspects where you can do different things depending on the message that's here, the notification. You can clear them. You can clear just specific ones. So you see they're broken out here. There's Dolphin. You can just clear Dolphin, or you can clear everything. And yeah, it's a much, much better system than was there before. So that was a big feature in 5.17. And so I'm just going to scroll up through here and cover the things that sort of stand out to me. And if you guys think of anything you've seen in terms of 5.18, then let me know, and I'll look at those specifically. I'm going to try to be as comprehensive as I can, but without going too far in the weeds. Hey, Mitchell. Release date, well, I mean, they're committing to having it ready for the 20.04 release, so I'm guessing it's going to be finalized by April. They are, I'm at this point continuing to look at it. I think they've gotten a long way towards that goal. I'm on KDE Neon Unstable here, which has literally the up-to-date development packages, and they tell you that there will be many bugs. I love on their download page here. So they have a user edition, which is going to be 5.17.5 in the latest, stable release. Testing, which has some pre-release stuff, no QA and will contain bugs. And then the unstable edition, which is good for testing. It's built the same day from new feature branches. No QA will contain many bugs. That's probably true, and I have seen instances where KDE Neon Unstable is in fact unstable. This seems to be. I mean, I've only been using it for the last day or so, but it seems to be pretty stable. I guess time will tell on that, and also because you're getting updates continuously, it might be stable right now. But the next batch of updates might undo that. So, like I said, lots of little things here. I'm not going to go into every single one of these, but new icons, fixing metadata. I mean, it just goes on and on with these little things that are fixed. And again, this is every week that Nate's putting this out, and there's just so much that's being done. And these posts are a great way to keep up with it. If you haven't and you're interested, Pointiest Stick, and then This Week in Linux is all of the posts related to this. And then, as you would imagine, every week there's a new post. All right, let's see if we can find a feature here. So GTK and no maps now inherit the font, icon, cursor, and toolbar style settings for KDE apps instead of making you set them separately elsewhere. And what that means is when you come in here under application style, it used to be that you had a lot of different controls here and you had to sort of set everything separately. I actually should have had a virtual machine with an older release to show this, but now you're essentially just picking the GTK2, GTK3 themes, and then everything else is just going to follow like it said here, the font, icon, cursor, toolbar style settings for KDE. So you don't, what they're getting at, and Plasma's always been really good at this, is when you have GTK apps running on Plasma, they tend to integrate very well for the most part. There are some things like client-side decorations through a little bit of a wrench in the works, but most GTK apps look pretty good, and you had a lot of finite controls. So I guess if you wanted to, you could tweak them all. And I guess some people might see this as being more restrictive. But if you also keep in mind that a lot of people will say that Plasma has too many settings, and this is what I would say is a simplification of those settings, where the assumption is if you're running a GTK app on your Plasma desktop, you want it to look integrated. You want it to be, consistent across all of the applications. And so the thinking obviously is if you're setting something as a Plasma style or theme or something like that, that obviously you would want to have that be inherited as part of your GTK styling and theming as well. So I think that makes sense. I really like that. It's a smart idea. It just makes it overall easier for people to deal with that. Let's see. Hey, Keegan, how are you? Nice to see you. Leviticus. Primal Penguin. Hey, Allie. Good to see you. Present Arms. Or Present Arms. Present Arms. I assume it's Present Arms, as in Present Arms. So what do we got going? If you like KDE, but you want something like a GNOME app launcher, try Slings Cold. Haven't heard of that one. It's interesting. It's in the Farron OS repositories. I'm actually getting to one of the things they're doing is looking at changing out this default kickoff menu, which has kind of been that way for a while. I've read some things where this isn't something I'd be aware of, but apparently accessibility is a problem with this menu. If you have visual impairment, it can be very challenging to get through all of these layers of apps and to navigate around this. So, and I mean, just even as a fully sighted person doing this sometimes can be really annoying. So it's not my favorite menu. I usually change that, but I'll get back to that in a minute. Yeah, Leviticus, very sad. I had mentioned at the beginning of the stream, probably before you got here, I said some words on that. Yeah, it's extremely sad to see that Mark passed. Okay, let's see. Yeah, a lot of these are just things that I guess if you use Ocular enough and you run into these situations, like with apparently touchscreen on Ocular, you know, this is when you read something like this. There are times where I come through here and being a Plasma user, something will bother me, and if I come in and I look and I see a very specific feature or bug fix, and it's like, oh, that's fantastic because it's something that bugs me. So a lot of this stuff is very specific, and a lot of people might say, "Oh, big whoop," but it really does. For someone who's using Plasma on a regular basis, there are times where these things are huge quality of life improvements. So this week they were polishing up some new features. K-Find Dolphin now shows a quick link to open it. So something Dolphin already does, if you go to search, the default search is there, but you can always say more tools, and then it shows you a list of other tools that it could use as a search engine instead of using the inbuilt search. So they're saying here, if I want to install K-Find, Discover's going to pop up and go out and find that for me. And then let me install it. And then once it's installed, it will be integrated here directly. Again, if you see any bugs or weirdness in here, keep in mind that I am using an unstable branch, and they tell you right up front that there could be bugs, probably will be bugs. So don't judge if you see things in here that aren't quite working the way they should. This is obviously taking way longer than I would expect it to. Who knows exactly what it's doing. So I'm going to give it a little help. Just go ahead and install K-Find. All right. So it may not know about this right away. Let's see. Oh, it does. Okay. So now it's saying a quick link to open it, which can also be added to the toolbar. Okay, so here's the quick link. Got it. Very cool. Yeah. So Dolphin, you know, I think folks already know Dolphin's an incredibly powerful file manager. There's a lot of extensibility. You can add a lot to it and configure it in a lot of different ways. I tend to add a lot of different things in here. So I guess just as an example, let's see. One of the things that is set out of the box, I prefer to remember the display properties for each folder. So I usually will set that right away. Previews. It used to be that the previews it's a much lower threshold, and there's no limit. Let's see. Yeah, there's so much in here. I'm really not going to go into all this. I really like the copy and move to commands, which lets you right click and say copy to or move to, and then gives you a little fly out menu. You can add new services. That's one of the things about Plasma as well that I really like. Where you're in an area of functionality in the system and there's some option to set, in a lot of cases, if there's a way to extend something, they give you this ability to just pull up and go out and find new things. So if I wanted to add a new service in here, I simply just click that. It's going to go out and look at what's out there. I can search, find it, install it. And it's very easy to extend the capabilities of KDE Plasma in a lot of different ways. So that's in Dolphin, but then, you know, wallpapers, widgets, I mean, themes, on and on and on. Everywhere where you can kind of add in functionality, they give you that ability. So, all right. I can't read and talk at the same time if you can't tell. No, Ali. No, it's fine. I'm not the type of person that is gonna. I mean, it's a shame that Mark. It's sad that Mark is gone, but it's a part of life. It is what it is. I mean, I'm not. I think being hush hush about it is kind of a little silly, and to me personally, I hope that isn't disrespectful to anyone, but um, death is a part of life, and we celebrate people that we care about when they pass, and it's important that we remember them. And I have no problem with people talking about it. Yeah, Mitchell, the accessibility part of it. It's funny. My vision has gone pretty. It's gotten pretty poor just in the last year or so, and I mean, I can't see anything without my glasses. And there are times where I have to make things. All of my browser pages, I'm usually zoomed in at least one or two notches because things are just too small for me now. And so, I mean, I certainly hope it never happens, but I can see maybe if my vision continues to degrade that it gets more and more difficult to use things like a fully sighted person might. And so it's absolutely something that I think about more and more now. Like, how could I use this crazy menu if I couldn't really see it? Because I mean, there is a zoom tool. There are some ways that maybe I could, screen readers, things like that. But it would be this. I think this layout would be pretty challenging to deal with. So I'll get into that menu in a bit there. Hey, Tony. Good to see you, sir. All right. So the K-Fine, pretty cool. Again, all those integrations. Let's see. We've got a properties dialog, shows a button that will take you to the target of a symlink. Well, funny enough, I have some symlinks. The way I run my home folder, so my home folder, I have a home folder. It is here just as a home folder. Oh, sorry for bumping the mic. But I also do symlinks to a data directory. So this is actually a separate, not directory, separate partition. It's actually in this system, it's a completely separate disk. And what I do is that between installs different distros, instead of lumping everything into the same home folder and having to deal with configuration stepping on each other, and because you have some of these things that are in any desktop environment, you're going to have a certain number. You're going to have a config folder, a local folder, a var. Some of these you're going to have in every single one, and you can start. In my experience, and maybe it's not as bad as it used to be, but in my experience, when you start mixing all that stuff up, it gets a little messy. And so, what I prefer to do is the home folders here. These config files are specific to this installation, but all of my symlinks are out to that data drive. And so my documents, my downloads, all of this stuff is shared between those systems, and it just keeps it really clean like that. So anyway, symlink, what are they saying here? Now shows you a button that will take you to the target of the symlink. Okay, if and you say so. I don't guess I'm not seeing. Well, hey, let's look at the video. That makes sense. If the video works, maybe. Wonder if I'm missing some sort of codec or something to play video files. I don't know. Okay, well, I'm going to skip that one. Apparently, there is some option in here to do that. I'm not seeing a button anywhere. Maybe I'm missing it. Okay. All right, let's skip ahead another week. All right. So this was a big one. I'd already talked about the GTK support and how they've, changed this configuration here where it just sort of reads the rest of the system and inherits, and then you can set the theme itself, but ultimately font, some of those other settings are just going to pass through. One of the big challenges with the new GTK client-side decoration is there was an issue with toolbars where things would either double stack, where basically you had the Plasma toolbar and then the client-side decoration wanted to have its own toolbar, and it got really ugly and messy. And some of the buttons would, just things would not look right. And so let me see if I can install like gedit just to kind of show this. It's more than I'd ever want to actually install, but hey, who cares? All right. Well, that does not look like the right theme, does it? And this is something that happens to me in Plasma a lot. I have to actually come in here and switch these and then switch them back in order for things to inherit properly. Let's try this again. Hey, there you go. Yeah, that's been a bug that there is a configuration file that gets written in your home directory. I don't remember where it is. This? Yes. So I think it's this GTKRC 2.0 file. For whatever reason, it doesn't seem like it gets written properly on the default install. And so you have to, by going in and doing what I just did by switching the, back here, by switching these out, it rewrites the configuration options to this file and rewrites the file itself. And so then when you open a GTK application, then it will inherit the proper look and feel. So anyway, okay, here we go. So now you see, and I don't have it as a comparison to show you, but what you would have seen before is there's a Breeze toolbar at the top. Not a Breeze, a Plasma, window being drawn, and then this is sort of like inside the window, and it got all cramped and kind of weird. And now what you see is that it obviously did a much better job of taking that client-side decoration paradigm here and applying it properly. And now this GTK app is going to work, look right, work properly, and still inherit the theme characteristics. So you've got the dark bar, you've got, the right colors and everything, the right fonts, but now it looks the way it's supposed to as a GTK app that's using client-side decoration. Which is super cool, obviously, and something that was driving a lot of people crazy. It was a hard problem to deal with, and I think it took them a while to come to terms with exactly how to work on it. And I mean, this is one of those things, again, quality of life. This is going to be a long-term support release, so we're looking at 3 years on something like Ubuntu, and potentially longer, and other distributions potentially using this beyond that. And so this is the type of thing that if you're using this 2 years from now and that still happened, it would be really annoying. There were ways around it. You could actually change the CSS file. There were things you could do to fix it to make it look kind of like this, but it never was as clean and as obviously as easy as this is. So, and it says he's worked on this for months, and I believe it, because that was probably not an easy thing to do. And so kudos to Vlad for doing that. I love that Nate calls out the people actually doing the development. And, I don't know who Vlad is, but, Vlad took it upon himself to come in here and to pick one of these really hard problems and figured it out, which is, you got to love open source, folks. You just got to love it. Oh, My video is not good. Hey, there's a surprise. Live streams not working the way they should. It seems like it's working when I look on this side, at least. Oh God, were you guys getting an echo the whole time? I hope not. Huh. Oh, the video I clicked. Yeah, okay. Sorry, Ali. I wasn't sure. You know, with streams, you're never sure. I'm always assumed. I pretty much always assume that that it doesn't work. And look, my webcam's like way over here. Streaming. Gotta love streaming. Hey, John. How are you? Stream working. Got an error. Huh. Seems like it's been okay for other folks. Sorry to hear that. Not sure. So, Ali, you just realized how to get themes in Trinity to match with GTK. Yeah, isn't it funny? And it's not just Kubuntu. It's not just KDE Neon. It's a lot of distros. And actually, funny enough, I just tested Manjaro's KDE 19.0 preview, and it works in there. It works the way it should. So the Breath 2 theme is applied the way it should be. So when you open a GTK app, it's already set in place. So somebody obviously tested that and figured it out. So that's one of those things that this isn't meant to be a criticism, but I look at those things that seem so obvious. Like everybody uses, well, most people are going to use at least some GTK apps on Plasma. And there's at least some kind of testing happening, right? Presumably. And so it's just always funny to me when I open it and I see, I'm just like, well, that seems so obvious that anyone would see it. Maybe it was not an easy problem to fix. Don't know. Anyway, so, Manjaro was able to fix it. Fantastic. It's not a hard fix, as you can see, but if you don't know about it, you just think, well, it's broken. And you probably wouldn't realize to do that. So, okay. All right. All Plasma widgets can now show or hide the background frame. This is actually pretty cool. Background frame when placed on the desktop. So it also has these kind of dots around the side now, which is pretty cool. So if we add a widget here, actually I may be jumping ahead a little, but I want to show something. So you know how there used to be these little handles, little hamburger menu down here, and you clicked it and it would open up and it would be the add widget and do different things. So they actually added a really neat, they've sort of simplified, I don't know if simplified is the right word, but they've refactored how you configure the desktop. So if you just come in here and you say configure desktop, and of course it's going to make a liar out of me. What did I do? Is it because it's folder view? What happened? Customize. Sorry. No, if you do customize layout, there you go. So now you get this little pop out thing here, which is, I think it's pretty cool. And I can say add widgets from here. Also, when this is open, you see that little configure panel option is back. And so it's kind of like, this is the configure, what do they call it? Customize layout. So this is the customization mode, if you will. Has a little toolbar up here, opens up some other features down in your panels if you had more than one. And now I can add a widget from here. I can configure my activities from here, which is pretty cool. That might not, there it is. Configure desktop. Yeah. So these are the, high level things that you're probably going to want to do when you're customizing. So let's add this widget in here. And so now you see when you hover over this, now it's showing me this right away because this is still open. If I close this, it doesn't show it right away when I hover. If I click and hold, then it'll show it to me. But now I've kind of got the bounding area here, if that makes sense, where now I can see the full shape of this, and it gives me a little grab area as well. So before, you kind of had to do it from over here on this bar. If you remember, there was a grab in here, and it was pretty clunky at times because you could never quite get it to be right where you wanted it to be. Like if I want it to be up exactly right there in the corner, that's where I want it. It was hard to do that because this handle was on the right to start with, and you'd nudge it over there, and then you'd kind of get as close as you could, and then you'd have to get off of it, click away from it, the handle would go away, and you'd have to click back on it, and the handle would open on the other side. But you could never, I just always had a hard time getting it to be exactly where I wanted it to be. So the refactoring this just a little bit, making it so that you have these little grab handles here that are visually represented, that it's not just some invisible border like it used to be. That's really cool. I really like that. And hey, I want the second hand. So yeah, infinitely more usable. It seems like such a small change, but that just makes it so much easier to use widgets on the desktop and get them to be exactly how you want them to be. I mean, for another good example of that, not to belabor the point, but if you start getting into adding these, CPU load and, some of these where you want them to stack just right, network monitor, memory, and you kind of, they look great when you can get them to be exactly where you want them to be. And it was always just kind of a hassle to get it to be right where you wanted it to be. And now this just makes it so much easier. Well, okay. Again, remember, development. Oh, maybe it needs to be that size. I don't know. Told you we'd find some bugs, and that, I'm guessing that is a bug. Oh, and that one did it too. Maybe it's getting it close to the edge of the screen. I don't know. Well, there, it just popped in. Who knows? Maybe it's supposed to do that. Okay. So this just, like I said, I think this just makes it infinitely more easy to be able to do those things. And, looks great. Excellent. Okay. Check back in on chat. Ali said, look at the chat. Oh, it's going off screen. Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, my goodness. It is. I'm such a noob. Here, watch this. How about I set the screen to the right resolution? Oh, my goodness. So dumb. I apologize to everyone. But you must know that this is what my streams are going to be like. And who knows what this is going to do whenever I change this. No. Apparently not. Wait. Possibly. Oh my. Ha. There we go. Okay. I think that might have fixed it. Sure. Let's say it fixed it. Okay. So I apologize. What I was showing was that I was trying to stack these, and Ali, you obviously reached out psychically and told me to look at the chat. I appreciate that. So what I was trying to do here was to just show how these would stack out in a much nicer way. You get to live up here now because you're in the way. And just having these grab handles, it just makes it so much easier to do. So there you go. Okay. So besides being terrible at streaming, what am I missing here? Hey, Larry. How are you, sir? Good to see you. Starbuck, nice to see you. Ski Meister. All right. I think I'm. Hey, Rose. Good to see you. I think I'm back on track now. All right. Hooray. Now all these windows are going to be huge and goofy. That's okay. Okay. So, yes, very cool feature. I can probably zoom back on that. And again, long-term support release, the types of things you hope they're going to fix are things that all of the core features, right? All of the core inbuilt capabilities. Plasma is all about widgets, always has been, whether they're on the desktop or down here in the panel. You know, this show and hide desktop, that's a widget. The menu technically is just a widget. You know, and you could add any number of widgets. Another one that I really like doing design work is the color picker, which is a very, very nice little tool. And if you've never seen it, I will show you why. So I can use this little guy and grab any color on the screen. And then as I collect, this is what makes it different from other color pickers. As I collect these colors, it now gives me this lovely little panel. And I can choose to open the color dialog and, you know, see exactly more about that, you know, the RGB color, things like that. I can copy it. I can do, you know, this is a very well thought out, excellent little utility that I use constantly. And so anyway, widgets, very strong part of KDE Plasma. You hope that those are going to work well, especially in a long-term support release. And so things like that, I think, make a big difference. Let's see. I'm just kind of going through here and seeing if anything jumps out to me. Like I said, if you guys see anything that you're interested in taking a look at specifically, just let me know. Weather station, that's another one. So I like the having the weather. I don't necessarily keep it on the desktop. I put it in the panel. And let's stick it there. Or not. Let's stick it there. Okay. But one of the things that's always been really annoying is when you choose your location, it was very difficult to find the right thing. It just never seemed to work well. There was always this weird kind of overlap, and so it seems like maybe they've cleaned this up a little bit. And there you go. Cool. All right, that looks better. Yeah, very nice. All right. Rose, what distro am I using as my main driver? Well, it did a little adventurous, what do we call it? Extreme distro hopping. And this is actually KDE Neon unstable. And I installed it 20 minutes before I started streaming. So that's why I was a little late. I was over ambitious and over confident that I could get it done more quickly than I did. Because while I was doing that, I also had to move half of my stuff around. My mic wasn't in here, and anyway, it's always fun. If you're not sweating when you start streaming, something's wrong. You know, you can't be that relaxed. You gotta be amped up because you're always behind. The day I start a stream one time and everything works, I don't know. Maybe I just count my blessings and stop there. So, All right. Let's see. Little things. Cursor no longer unexpectedly changes its appearance when hovering over a GTK app. Not something I noticed, but it's probably something that's bothered lots of people. All right. Sidebar title on Discover is now a real title. Yeah, toolbar that doesn't scroll away. A lot of people have lamented and given Discover a lot of problems, a lot of grief over the year. I have to say, recently, like let's say within the last few releases, there have been a lot of improvements in here, and the stability has improved greatly. The ability to find things has gotten much better. These menu layouts, the integration with seeing what's installed, some of the different settings in here, and all of it is very quick now. This used to be just dog slow for most of this stuff, and now Plasma or Discover has gotten really good, really good. So it didn't, obviously it was having an issue earlier installing Kfind, but I don't think that's down to Discover. I think that's more down to being on an unstable release. So anyway, what they're calling out here is that if you've got things installing, so if let's say I want to install Critter, and I bring up this task, now it's actually a task bar. If you remember before, it was just this sort of overlay that kind of laid there, and you really there was no real control to it. You couldn't really do anything with it. That actually had a nice little, did you see that exit animation? That's neat. Cool. So somebody took some time and put some effort into that. Very cool. I like that. It's a little confusing that I just installed it and it still says install. I guess I would expect that to maybe say that it's installed. Now it does, but maybe it didn't. This is also super cool. One of the biggest complaints I have about most software managers is they make it very difficult to tell exactly where something is from. And the fact that I can look at this package and see that there are more than one source for it, I think that is really smart and very handy. I am muted. Sorry. So Discover really does. It's just made. Sorry, Larry, and everyone. This is why I must keep the chat open because you guys keep me honest, fix all my problems. Anyway, if you've missed half of what I said on KDE Discover, it's just gotten so much better with each release, and it continues to just get better. And these little things that they're adding just make it better. And the reason I find it to be just a better experience overall is, again, like you saw, I can come in here and see different sources if they exist and pick which one I want. Whereas in others, let's say it will still show me that there's more than one option here, which is great. But then if I come in here, let's see if it will pop out like the way it did before. Maybe not. Probably not, because I actually added a separate repository for OBS on here. That may not have been the best option. Let's try just like something like Discord. No. Maybe there's not a snap of that. I'm not sure. I don't use snaps very often, and I don't have Flatpak installed on here. Anyway, point being, not to belabor the point any further, that I just really feel like Discover has come a long way, and for all of the grief that the team that works on it took, to be fair, I feel like maybe they put it out a little too early, but honestly, it's gotten very good now. So, all right. Yeah, I guess video just isn't working in here right now. So, more things with the notifications. Again, 517 brought in I think it was 517. It might have been 516. I'm pretty sure it was 517. But when the notifications got introduced, again, it was sort of a set of functionality, and then each release they iterate on it and have just continued to improve it. And so, and that's really sort of the story of KDE, right? They come out, they add some piece of functionality. It's in many ways, at least at first, it's not fully fleshed out. I mean, it's functional, and then other people come in and say, well, maybe this is a good idea, and we can, try different things, iterate on that. So, oh, hooray, emojis. I joke. Everybody loves emojis, and it is, if you can't use them, it is a challenge. So let's open, what's on here? Anything I can use as a, I guess I can put emojis in, Kate. Let's find out. Okay, so they are saying meta period. And hey, what do you say? All right. That is a lot of emojis. Good Lord. Okay. Well, every emoji ever created, probably. I'm not the emoji expert. I'm not strong on the emojis. Yeah. Look at that. Hey, that's great, right? Who doesn't love emojis? And that was just meta period. And you saw that as that huge flyout that comes up, and recent, search, all. Yeah, just like you'd see on a smartphone. Very clever. I like that. Cool. Let's see. Dolphin has an action and keyboard shortcut to focus and defocus terminal panel for super hyper mega productivity, huh? Wow. Let's see. All right, well, let's take a look. All right, so Dolphin has the terminal built in by default. F4 toggles that on, and it looks like Control Shift F4 focuses it. Oops, sorry for hitting the mic. I'm not sure what that means. I don't know. But I do know that the terminal is great because it follows you as you move around. So if you like to have the terminal open down there, if you're issuing commands and stuff like that, as you come in, you see it navigates with you. And there's lots of stuff you can do here. I'm not going to do it justice in a couple minutes, but this is really powerful because it just makes it easy to both use the file manager and do commands at the same time. And if you haven't tried it, you should. But I don't know what this is. I thought this was neat. So 7-zip archives, they have built-in support for that in Dolphin, Crusader, file dialogues, and other apps that have a URL navigator. So that's pretty cool. 7-zip, 7Z files, those are pretty common. I don't think I have any right now. I guess I could create one. so I can browse it. Oh, there we go. Oh, you know what? They may be massive files. No. Okay. So now there should be a wormhole zip file here somewhere. Maybe. Did it put it somewhere? Okay. Again, could be bugs, and it could just be that I'm not seeing it because I'm blind. Oh, there it is. I am blind. Okay, so what do we do with these now? Browse them. I guess that would just be, oh, okay, there we go. So Arc can open it and actually show you what's in the 7-zip file before you actually extract it. Very cool. Very handy, because 7-zip is just one of those formats that gets used a lot in addition to gzip and tarballs and all of that. Yeah, I saw this. I wasn't exactly sure. Clicking on the scroll bar track. So I went in and I actually saw this in settings, because when I changed the click style, yeah. So I'm not entirely sure what that means. Scroll one page up or down if I'm clicking in here. Ah, I guess that's what it is. Scrolls to the clicked location. Let's see if that works. Oh, this may not be a large enough window. Let's see, does that work on here? Oh boy. I may have broken Firefox. I did. Oh no. Great. So it probably means I broke the chat too. No? All right. Okay. Here we go. I can test it in here. All right. It's going where I clicked it to. Now if I apply this. Ah, that is really clever. I don't know that I ever knew I needed that, but hey, why not? Very cool. I think I would probably prefer it to go where I click. Yeah. Oh, I've roused Rick Mills. Rick, it's getting late over there. What are you doing up? Just thought I would take a look at 518. I've been following it, but it I haven't actually taken. I mean, I've looked at it. I keep looking at Neon, but I haven't done. Haven't done any videos or anything on it, because every time I look, there's a new cool feature, but it's like 2 or 3, and I wanted it to get to this point where there was enough to show that was pretty cool. I mean, I've been going for an hour now, and I think I've only gotten through about a third of it. So, but thanks for joining, Rick. And as I mentioned, folks, earlier, Kubuntu. So Rick works on Kubuntu, and he also manages the backports. So if you're running 1910 or 20 or 1804, 1904 still, but 1904 is, remember, end of life at the end of January. If you don't know that already, if you're running a 1904 release of Ubuntu, end of life is at the end of the month. So you want to upgrade probably before then, but you could wait, I guess. 1910's been out long enough that if you're worried about it being stable, I mean, you're well past that point. It's kind of why they give you that 6-month overlap, is to give you a chance to make sure you can move up to the next release and not have any problems. And generally with each new release, you want to give it a few, I like to give it at least a few weeks, just to let some of the initial patches and bug fixes and things come out. And then I'm usually good from there. But yeah, if you haven't upgraded already, you're going to want to before the end of the month. So anyway, my point I was making about Rick was that, so if you're on any of the Kubuntus that are supported, he's providing the backports repository, the PPA. And what's great about that is you're going to get an up-to-date or a newer version. So if you're on the LTS, if you're on 1804, you're not going to get the latest version of Plasma. You're going to get a newer version that would have been on Kubuntu 1804. But if you're on 1910, I assume I haven't checked in a couple of days, but I'm assuming you'll be at 5.17.5 at this point, which is the latest release. So Rick's really great about always keeping the Plasma version on Kubuntu, on the latest release at least, up to the current release of KDE Plasma. And so that's really cool because you're running the Ubuntu base underneath the Kubuntu, and you're getting essentially the latest package, right? So I mean, even Neon, like Arch, like all of the distros right now, the latest release, the latest stable release is 5.17.5. And so even on Kubuntu, which is not a rolling distro, you're getting those updates. So another reason why I think Ubuntu is just such a great distribution, because very specifically of people like Rick. So thank you, Rick. Random insomnia. Yeah, that happens. I hear you. Yeah, Allie's another one. But Allie, you're consistent. I'm not considering it random insomnia when you're always on streams at 3 a.m. So, all right. So let's go back and keep looking here. Okay. Get all that stuff out of the way. Oh, we're back. Thank goodness. Okay, so we looked at the emojis for focus terminal, scroll to click, some bug fixes, and I'm not going to really go through all of that. User interface improvements. Again, I'm just sort of picking through. Improve the user interface for wired network configuration. Yeah, this was actually really cool. So the network panel has always been good anyway, but now you get a much nicer details panel. And so when you come in here, if the information is, if you're on a network that has a lot of extra information, you're going to see sort of all this extra stuff in here. If it's Wi-Fi, obviously you're going to see a lot of more stuff with the SSID and all that. The wired is kind of just showing you what you'd expect on an Ethernet connection. And yeah, just another solid control panel. And again, another small quality of life thing that makes it easier to use. Yeah, little things like that. All right. Oh boy, it's a long one. All right, building up to something big. Okay. Now there's a keyboard shortcut for do not disturb mode. I really like do not disturb mode. It is very handy, and there are just times where if I'm trying to focus and I leave notifications on, it's so easy for me to see that someone posted a new comment somewhere. There's a new Telegram chat. There's a new something that just even seeing the notification, even if I don't go to it, it just breaks my train of thought just enough that all of a sudden it's like, so to be able to come in here and to do even for an hour, 4 hours, and, permanently until you turn it off until tomorrow morning, whatever those are, it's just so nice to have that quick feature to do that. And now they're obviously, the change here is that they're providing a shortcut to do that, which is great. Because honestly, I think, like you saw, I have to click the arrow here, then notifications, then the box. So being able to come in, and presumably it's just in here. Yeah, toggle with. Let's do Meta D. Nope. I'm guessing that was the wrong thing to pick. Oh. Oh, Plasma. Oh, it didn't take it. That's weird. Why is that? Meta. Oh, it doesn't like that. All right, let's do Control Shift N. Apply that. Hey, there you go. Cool. So yeah, instead of having to click and come through and do all those steps that I did, now I have Control Shift N, which is of course a conflict with Firefox. Oh my, I love keyboard shortcuts. Okay, maybe not the right one to pick there, but you saw that it did work when this wasn't focused. So this was also kind of interesting. I actually do like this feature. Actually, before I get that, let me check in on folks. Okay, you guys, you're doing what you're doing. All right, so grouping. This is always something. So I love the icon task manager because I would prefer to see things just as visual cues like an icon and not, again, the default is this task manager, and to me it just gets kind of messy. I don't really love that. So if I, how do I get to this now? Oh my, what did I do? I know there's a way to get to it. Now I can't remember. Oh my, to see all my mistakes. What is that? I guess I gotta unlock. Customize layout. Yes. Oh, I know it's here somewhere. I'm so close. I can feel it. There it is. Okay. So, all better. Okay, so as you saw with the default list, you saw each thing has its own entry. You can actually set it to group them as well. But when you start getting windows grouped together, like more than one window, now you kind of have to pick between them. And it's not the best experience sometimes. So there's actually an option in here now to make it so that they don't stack on top of each other. And that, I believe, is in here. I know it's here somewhere. I've seen it. There it is. Do not group. Aha! So now I can have as many icons as I need and just know that I can click between them. And that's a little bit easier, I think, especially from a mouse-driven workflow. And I again, just it's nice to have that option there, and I appreciate that it exists. So, and apparently this isn't frozen up again. I have a feeling that might be a bug. Yeah, there we go. I have a feeling maybe there's a little bit of a bug in this switcher right now. Okay. And I think I lost my place as well. I did. Okay. Yeah, Allie. I've had this cough for probably 7 or 8 years now. I've been to every specialist you can imagine, tried every treatment. Is what it is. And funny enough, talking is what makes me cough. So, you guys see it during the streams, but my videos and stuff like that, I edit all of that out so you never hear it or see it. Same thing with podcasts. I mean, all of it just is what it is. I refuse to be silenced. So, all right. So fractional scaling, I don't think I can show that so much. Those are bug fixes. Dolphin and Kate. Oh yeah, Kate has a terminal as well. Aha. Yeah. So let me go off on a cough drops melted in Leviticus. Okay, this is some good advice here, folks. Cough drops melted in moonshine. Fix that cough right up. Or I'll be unconscious and I won't be coughing when I'm unconscious. That would work as well. Very handy. Good advice. I'll have to take you up on that. I hear Keegan has a line on some good moonshine. To go visit him sometime. So I just want to take a quick second to talk about Plasma's built-in applications, and these are just basically the simple ones that you use. So console as the terminal, which is excellent and has all the settings you could ever possibly want for a Linux terminal application. Kate for a text editor, and Kate always delights me. There's things in here, so they've really taken this to a point where it is very close to being. I'm not going to say an integrated development environment. It's not maybe. I don't know if there's debuggers and like things like that you can hook in here. Maybe there are, but in terms of just integration with the system and having a robust set of tools that that really give you a lot of capabilities. So people will install VS Code or they'll go get another text editor, and in a lot of cases that's absolutely true that the inbuilt text editor that you're getting with a desktop environment is maybe not as powerful as you'd need it to be to do some advanced things. And Kate really just has it just has so many features and capabilities built into it. I mean, a lot of the text editors you can extend with plugins and add-ons, and you certainly can as well with Kate. But the capabilities of all of these, sessions and all the plugins that are here, the syntax highlighting, the auto completion, just on and on and on. Git integration, I mean, it really it's the extensibility of Kate is pretty phenomenal, and something that sort of delighted me recently, which I hadn't noticed, and this isn't brand new, but if you open a long file, so most text editors have this map over here, and it lets you quickly see, it's a representation of the code itself, so you can see where the different lines of code are, but you can't actually see it, right? You can it's a representation, it's a map, right? Well, Kate now has this thing where as you hover over it, it zooms in for you so you can actually see what's there. Now, I don't know that this is unprecedented. I mean, this might be something that's elsewhere, but again, this is so cool to be able to see, oh, okay, this is the section I'm looking for. Click on it. Boom. I'm right there. Those little things, like I use the word delight, and I use it very with intent. I wanted to say that because those are the types of things that delight me. I didn't enable this. I didn't ask for this, but here it is. This really cool feature that lets me jump around a file and actually navigate in a very meaningful way. And I love that. I just absolutely love that. So again, console, Kate, Dolphin, a lot of these utilities that come built into KDE as the default set of applications. I'm trying to find other ones, but I think you get my point that it seems like they put a tremendous amount of effort into making sure that those are very useful and they're not just sort of a one and done. Yeah, Mitchell, I don't know. I don't know what other editors have that feature. It's not one that I've seen, but I haven't used every editor, and I certainly don't use like high-end integrated development environments. So maybe they have their maps include that. Maybe there's add-ons that give you that feature in other editors that I just haven't seen. But to just have it be in there and to just, it just works. It's just there, such a cool feature. But that was the point I was trying to make, is that I just think the Plasma team just does, the KDE apps team, I guess, does such a good job of, it's not a one and done thing. It's not, here's this editor, and if you want any new functionality, it's going to have to be a plugin or something. And it just keeps evolving and getting better over time. So just from a productivity standpoint, someone was asking the other day about, having a system that's productive, having a system that's stable, having a system that gives you tools out of the box, the capabilities of a desktop environment. Yes, Plasma can be, I guess, complex. There can be a lot of stuff in here that might be off-putting, all of these settings. I think they've done a much better job, making this easier to get around now. The search is nice because it actually takes you right to, it's showing you the sections, and then anything that matches that, now you can go directly to it. And so it's gotten a lot easier to come in here and find the things that you're looking for. And again, I think that's as a direct result of people giving that kind of feedback. Just Plasma continues to get better and better and better, and they're addressing a lot of those issues. I still have some criticism. So if you saw, Nate just did a video on quick tiling. And there's an inbuilt feature for tiling windows in here if you go under shortcuts. But you have to know to come to KWin. You have to know to look for, I guess it's tile. Yeah, quick tile. You have to, those shortcuts aren't set necessarily, I guess, the way that you might, at least the way he had them set. And as a inexperienced or new user to Plasma, how would I know that? If I didn't know it was called tiling and was able to search and find these specific features, what I have is this giant list. And so what I would love to see, because you can actually import this schemes and stuff like that, and maybe this is something that Farron can look at some point, because he's done such a good job with taming some of these Plasma settings, is that there could be like a default set of, if you want to enable quick tiling and have this sort of default experience with quick tiling, you enable it, and then in the background, it just sort of inserts those keyboard shortcuts for you. It seems entirely plausible, and maybe that's something that, as time goes on, those features, this power of Plasma becomes, some of those things bubble up to the surface that make it more discoverable, easier for folks to see the power and the flexibility. And to jump off on an even bigger tangent, there's conversations around Windows and Linux desktop environments in general, and just the idea that we can customize those things. There's so many capabilities, so many different ways to use a desktop and make it your own. Plasma is such a strong experience because of that, but because some of it is kind of buried and you may not see it, it can be a little challenging sometimes to find those features. And let's see. This was always a little goofy thing. The notifications never were dead center. And so it looks like they figured that out. Night color. So Plasma has had a night color option. It's probably not there anymore. But under system tray, there was no, actually, let me take that back. There was an additional package you can install to then enable an extra item under here that was I think they called it Redshift or something like that. So you could actually add it in here. It just wasn't there by default. And then it was completely functional and it worked great. But it wasn't readily apparent that, there was a night color feature. And now if you come into system settings and go down under display, there is a built-in night color system now. And it has all of the features you would expect to be able to set the color. 45 is usually too red for me, so I usually go like 5200, somewhere around there. And then, it's going to read your location, or you can set the custom times yourself. And so yeah, very nice little built-in panel here. The last thing they added, and it's probably further up in the list, but as you notice now, there's actually an entry in here for that lets you toggle it and interact with it. That wasn't here before. They had added this panel, but they hadn't added something in the system tray itself. So fantastic stuff that's built in now. And to go along with being able to uncouple the icons here, there's also different background colors to show states. So obviously this is the active window, and it's showing me that with that slight blue background, which is nice. And then these all have a background because they're open. If I were to, let's say, pin this, which will leave it there now, and then close it, now it doesn't have a background. Now it's acting like a launcher. And so having these different backgrounds makes it even easier visually to differentiate. This was nice. So the show desktop icon is now a monochrome icon always. What used to happen was if this bar was, which by default it's usually much shorter, and I always make it a little bit bigger. I just, like I said, some visual issues, some vision issues and stuff. I just bet easier for me if these things are a little larger. When you would expand that and make it taller, this would turn from monochrome into a colored icon. And it never quite looked very good, I don't think. And so I like that it stays this sort of icon consistently, no matter what size that is. Again, small things, but quality of life things. And let's see, where are we now? It's going to be amazing, Nate says. Features and polish are coming in hot and heavy for Plasma and KDE apps. Absolutely. So this is a new thing in Dolphin. You can tag items. Oh, this one actually plays. Look at that. So I'm not a huge user of tags, but I could see if you were doing a lot of file-centric things with a lot of small files, that having tags would make it would make a very nice experience. And go away. So let's take a look at that. So if I come in, assign tag, create new, say tag 1, and assign tag 2. Now for some reason I'm not seeing the tags show up here. I'm guessing that's probably just a bug in this version or something. Let's go back. And I could be using that wrong, but I would assume that if there's tags in the system that they would just show up here. So, so it could be that I'm doing something wrong. Yeah, it just looks like maybe the tag thing isn't working properly right now. So fortunately they had the video. I think we saw how that worked. Rose says, what is the best DE? I don't think there is a best. And it's just like, when is the year of the Linux desktop? I throw it in that same category of question. It's what's best for you. You know, the year of the Linux desktop is when you found it and it changed you and made sense to you. So, personally, I have 3 favorites, if that's even possible: KDE Plasma, Cinnamon, and GNOME. So I like all 3 of them, and I like all 3 of them more than I like other desktop environments, but that doesn't mean I don't like the others. They're not my favorites. There's absolutely nothing, wrong with XFCE or Mate or, Budgie is a great option. I really like Budgie, and it's situational. Like I said, I think if anyone saw, I'd posted a question about the best distro and desktop environment for a workstation specifically, and that criteria was more about what's stable, what's performance, and what is going to work well specifically because I'm connecting to that machine remotely. So what's going to work well on a remote desktop situation? What's going to use, I guess, less resources because I'm not so much worried about eye candy and all of that. So in that case, GNOME's not going to be a great candidate for me for that workstation because I don't need sort of all of the polish of, well, maybe polish is the wrong word. I don't feel like GNOME's the best candidate for that. So I would say Plasma is probably the better option for that because I think it's better utility. It's got a lot more capabilities and tools and things built right in that you can do. And I think it's just a better option for something like that. On my laptop, I'd rather use GNOME because GNOME is just it, especially whenever you're using keyboard centric stuff, you can really fly around in GNOME and do some interesting things. So on that system, I like that. So it's a tough question to say, what's the best one? It's the best one for you, and it's maybe the best one for that situation. Ali says exactly, the best D is the best that you use. Yep, 100%. Absolutely. Ah, Steve, no, it is not a professional stream at all, sir. You actually missed my several uh, several issues. One was my screen was the wrong size, so everything on the right side you couldn't see because it was being cut off by the stream. So I was talking about something for a good 5 minutes that was on that side of the screen, and everyone went, can't see any of it. So yeah, there's that. You and I both know, and anyone who streams knows that streams are just always a calamity, just the way it is. Some guy named Adam Grubbs. Adam Grubbs. Sounds vaguely familiar. I don't know if I've some dude in his computer. I'm gonna throw back some dude in the YouTube chat. Hey Adam, good to see you, man. Hope all is well. What else is going on here? I've told you I can't read and type and and talk at the same time. Some people are really good at that. Maybe someday when I'm a professional streamer like Steve, I can read and talk at the same time. Oh my. All right. So I showed you that this I've already showed you the searching in the system settings where it narrows it down. And what I really like about this too is, again, so I've seen implementations of this where you search and it will show you the specific results, but I like in here that it's giving you context. So I can still see that this is under appearance, this is under workspace, this is under personalization, hardware, and it's referencing things that are related to my search term, but also giving me that context and then the drill down to show me where things are. And then also, as I click through them, it keeps it. Because a lot of times I've seen where you get your search result, again, you don't have that context to sort of let you navigate. And then if you click on an entry, you just kind of, you lose your search. So you lose all context completely. And so this is really well done, I think, because of that, where you have all of those things that stay in place and make it easy for you to jump around, because maybe there are two or three of these that you want to change. And now you have this very easy way to navigate as you are searching through. So very, very cool. You can show transfer speeds in bytes if you want. Sure. I guess if you have a fast enough connection, maybe, but why not? Keyboard mode with shortcut. We've seen that. Okay, I guess this little icon is what's showing. They're saying now obvious which plasma themes follow your system color scheme. Let me also say, so I've been guessing at a lot of these because I don't know the detail behind any of them, but Nate does a really good job with having this link here. And what that's actually going to take you to is the bug itself, or the fabricator page, or wherever this idea came from or where it was discussed. He actually links back to the original kind of idea around it or the discussion that happened. So if you ever don't know what something is, but you think, well, that looks interesting, but I wish I could find out more about it, he does a really good job of giving you the context of why something was done and maybe how it was discussed and how they arrived at that decision. So very, very cool stuff. Mitchell, plasma's lost weight, lower RAM usage. Will they consider it lightweight? Well, depends on, I still think it matters for the hardware that's underneath. So if you have a newer system with, let's say, a pretty decent specs, especially on the GPU side, because Plasma still does a lot with compositing, and you can disable all of that if you want and make it even lighter. But out of the box, you're seeing all these shadows, and there's definitely a lot of compositing and things that are happening. So it's lightweight in the sense that it's not using as much memory as maybe some other desktop environments, and perhaps some of the overhead is lower. But I think there is a bit of an expectation that if you run it stock, that the system itself has enough horsepower to run it smoothly. And so when you kind of compare that to something like XFCE or Lubuntu or some of these other systems that maybe, are also very, Mate, I'll throw that in there, that are also very sort of performant and lower resource usage, I think maybe they have a slight advantage in that they will run better on older hardware than maybe Plasma will. Now, I don't really have older hardware to test this on, so I'm just basing this off of feedback that I've seen from other people, because that discussion keeps coming up of Plasma is very lightweight, and that's absolutely true in the sense of the amount of memory it uses and maybe the amount of CPU overhead. But some of the other things that Plasma's doing, again, like the compositing and some other things, I think, again, KDE XFCE might run a little better on an older piece of hardware. Actually, I do have an older laptop that my daughter uses. Maybe I'll use that and do some testing just to see. But yes, in general, Plasma is very performant and runs very well. And I think if you did just disable some of that, let's see, compositing, and you can come in and just disable it. Yeah, enable right there. So you can just disable it. And Plasma still works fine. You just you don't have the shadows and some of the transition stuff with, the transforms and some of the, scaling. It's just stuff like that. So the compositor's enabling obviously some of those effects, and you won't have them, but you'd have all the other pieces of Plasma, and it would be just fine. So I think you've seen this a couple times when pop-ups have come up. There's a little circle now around the close button that just shows. See how it's ticking down there. So again, another nice little feature, I guess. Not absolutely critical, but nice to see it. Draggable proxy icon and file download. Okay, so I guess when you download a file, you can grab that and drag it to a different folder. Sure. This is cool. Bluetooth in general now, and this isn't just Plasma, but in I think this was a kernel thing. I don't know which kernel it came out as. I think it was in the 5 something series, where Bluetooth devices can report the battery state and show you the charge. And so a lot of desktop environments, not just Plasma, have started to show that. And so I know, like, my mouse is wireless, and it'll show me, what the charge level is. And this is on GNOME as well. But apparently here it's smart enough that if you're getting low, it's going to pop up and tell you, which is nice. Nothing like dead air, huh? Maybe I need some music in the background. I can't read and talk. I've told you this. Again, a lot of these are pretty small things, but collectively, it's a large list of things. All right. Oh yeah, I've seen this. Okay, the system settings Plasma style page has a search field and allows you to see light themes, dark themes, and things that are compatible with your color scheme. And that's a neat feature, right? I mean, I guess if you had enough themes installed, by default, I mean, they're really yeah. I mean, there's only a few here, so it's pretty obvious which ones are dark and which ones are light. But if you went out and got a bunch of new styles out here and had, I guess, a lot in here, that it might be nice to just easily flip through them. So yeah. Again, nice quality of life thing. Hey, Bob the Hopper. Chip, good to see you. Way late. Yeah, well, I'm almost 2 hours in with, hard to say, no end in sight. Appreciate you guys hanging in there. Trying to be comprehensive. I know this is probably, if I would do this as a video, I would probably be able to get through it in 20 minutes to edit it all down and be concise, but that's not how streams work. Mitchell, how much do the KDE devs work with GNOME GTK devs? Isn't there some collaboration? Yeah, so there was a desktop summit actually with KDE and GNOME, and actually a bunch of the desktop environments where they are having conversations around, I guess, interoperability, and just being more mindful of, what other systems, what other desktop environments, what their goals are, what their plans are, their roadmap, maybe some of the sort of overarching things they're trying to accomplish, And there's always this. Some people hold the opinion that there's too much fragmentation, that there people are focusing on too many things at once. And so I think this is a way for different development groups to collaborate, may not be the right word, but at least have an idea and an open dialogue where, I have to imagine that the person that did the work, Vlad, that did the work on the GTK CSD stuff in here, I imagine he had to go find at least documentation, if not directly interact with someone on the GTK side to figure out some of those things. Maybe not, but I have to imagine. So those types of things, right? How can I better incorporate some of the things that you're that you're working on? Because GNOME has their set of apps, right? I've talked about KDE's set of apps, and GNOME has theirs, and you've seen that I installed gedit on here, and obviously it works. I can use it on Plasma. Is that a common use case? I don't know. Maybe people really like gedit and they want to use Plasma. I've seen people use, a lot of GTK apps on Plasma. And so it's good that there would be some kind of dialogue and open line of communication between them to be able to share information, discuss things. So, I'm not sure it's a collaboration, but at least it is, it's good to see that there's at least some sort of formal process happening around that. They had a summit, everybody came and got to talk together. There were some presentations. Hopefully getting together like that formed some relationships that they can now take advantage of. So, Chip, this is KDE Neon Unstable. So I'm actually running, the latest builds of everything that's out there in the Unstable channel that's been built and can be pulled down. So that's how I'm able to show a lot of this stuff. The latest stable release of Plasma right now is 5.17.5, and a lot of this stuff is not in there because this is all like when you see on these pages, when they're adding things, they're actually tagging, what release it's in. So pretty much everything I've shown here tonight is in 5.18, and you're not going to see any of that unless you're on Neon Unstable. Oh, Adam, what if you're a really good person, but you're in a really, really, really bad fight and your leg gets gangrene and has to be amputated? Will it be waiting for you in heaven? There's so many questions, so many different directions I can take that. Let's just say yes, Adam. Your leg will be there waiting for you, and you'll be able to hop over to it, and it'll magically reattach. Maybe like the Terminator, the liquid metal guy, where it just kind of melts back on, and then you've got your leg back. I'll just leave it there. Never dull when Adam's around. All right. Okay, so the filtering on the themes, other applications. Oh, for notifications. Okay. You can choose the notification behavior of poorly integrated apps, says Nate, that don't identify themselves properly. Okay. So I'm not sure if that would be not identifying itself properly because of the desktop file. Maybe it's maybe it's desktop file in here. I mean, if you're to look at one of these desktop files, especially for one that's coming from a package like a deb package or something, there's a lot of stuff in here. And so maybe what that's keying off of is that, or why they have to add this other, is that maybe it doesn't have all of the pieces in here that it's supposed to. The MIME type, the categories, the, all of that sort of stuff. Just a guess. I have no way to know that that's true, but that would be my guess why that's happening. I mean, I'll look in there now and see if there's any others. What's that under? Applications, right? Notifications, applications, settings. Huh. Oh, they're there. So are there any others? I guess it can't identify them, so it's not going to actually show me a list of them. If it could, then it wouldn't be another. This is just, I guess, a catch-all for the ones that don't identify themselves properly. Okay, makes sense. Ah, interesting. So there's a, if you have Firelight installed, which I should. No. So Neon doesn't have a lot of stuff installed by default. So let's add. So this is actually kind of a cool feature. So Firelight is a file, a disk space application that's going to show you what files are using up disk space, and then let you kind of drill in and do different things. And it looks like what this is letting you do is, well, here, I'll open it. So yeah, graphically, it's just kind of showing you what disks you have, what space is used, and then you can drill in, and it does a count. And hey, there's lots of files on that disk. Probably picked the wrong one. But this is also kind of, I guess, the point of what they've done here is, if you wanted to scan, you'd kind of have to go through, and you could do an open and then browse to a folder. But I guess as a shortcut now, I could just come into, let's say, downloads and my Linux ISO folder. And then let's see if I can figure this out. Oh, open with Firelight. There we go. So great. Now it's showing me I've only got 2 files in here, but so that just was a very quick way to get to that functionality without having to go through all those steps that I just showed you. Cool. So a lot about Eliza, and Spectacle. I don't use either of them, so I really don't have a great point of reference. Explanatory labels for single-click, double-click settings that help you learn how to select items. Oh, this is fodder for the next Biddle if I've ever seen it. We're gonna have to explain to Rocco about single and double click. This is fantastic. Let's see, what's it tell us? Oh, it's just saying select by single clicking. So, wait, that's what they mean? Oh, okay. Yeah, so it's just a label that explains what it's going to do by setting that. Okay. Sure. Yeah, there is definitely a bug in here. When I switch windows back and forth, I keep losing the ability to scroll in here. All right. We're getting closer, folks. I swear. Yeah, this was a review, so I really don't have to go through this one of 2019. So I'm going to skip that one. Late holiday presents. All right. Yes, you have it on good authority. How I would know that body parts will be waiting for you in heaven? Let's just say I'm going to call it a hunch. I'm going to say that if you make it to heaven, anything you've lost here will be waiting for you, including. No, I'm not going to get on that path. Let's leave it at that. So Adam, Eliza always seems neat, but it never worked out well, and the library changes aren't reflected properly. It can be hard to work with. Yeah, it's funny with streaming. I think it becomes less and less, and I maybe there are a lot. I certainly still have a lot of files, MP3 files that I've ripped over the years or downloaded, but I just find myself using them less and less, and more relying on streaming. So in a lot of cases, these systems that are indexing library, like I haven't used them in such a long time that I've kind of lost touch with what's out there. I just don't really use desktop music players very often. Yeah. Chip, yeah, I'm not a single click person either. Rocco is, and we always make fun of him because of it. But um, you know, each to his own. That setting wouldn't be there if people didn't have a preference. Mitchell, is there anything significant under the hood changes? Anything deprecated, removed, or more polished? Well, again, you're depending on your point of view. Well, first of all, yeah, there's a ton of under the hood stuff, and that's where a lot of the bug fixes come in, right? They are it's a lot of minutia, and so that's why I haven't been really covering it here. But yeah, there's so much that's happening under the covers and under the window manager itself that's just there's continuous bug fixes and improvements, and this is also just stuff that Nate is bubbling up to the top. There's a lot more in terms if you were just go look at raw commits and changes being made. Yeah, it's continuous. There's so much that's happening in the the back end, the libraries, and all that stuff. And this is also just Plasma, right? We're not even talking about KDE apps and sort of all of the libraries and all the other stuff that KDE packages. This is all very much Plasma. I mean, obviously, we're covering some of the apps as well, but I mean, there's just the ecosystem of KDE is huge, right? It encompasses a lot of different projects, and we're not talking about any of the other dozens and dozens and dozens of applications that live under the KDE umbrella. So yeah, there's a lot that not only happens in this specific release, but just is continuously happening. Sorry, I'm getting to that point where I'm starting to feel it in my voice, but yeah, and as I mentioned earlier, like KDE's just as a project, all of their different projects that different things that are happening underneath. It's just so much happens on an ongoing basis, and you just see this continual improvement, this continual movement forward with this project. In terms of deprecation, so I guess that's one complaint I could make. So we touched on the application style, and now this is what you get. If for some reason you wanted to change those settings the way that you could in previous releases, it's not here anymore. So you might see that as a negative thing. Input devices. So for touchpad, I don't have a touchpad on here, but they changed all. So you could see here, this is actually the older style of the touchpad dialog. And if I were on my laptop, because of they ported over the live input stuff that they had done for Wayland, and they greatly simplified the way this works. And so this disable touchpad when typing doesn't exist anymore. It's not in the Wayland, live input Wayland stuff that they put together. And so when they put that in place, which I think might have been 5.16, maybe 5.17, I lost the ability to configure this, because before I could just come in here and disable touchpad when typing or disable when a mouse is plugged in. And that stuff, it was just here and I can easily configure it. And now it's not. And so I don't have that easy access to those controls like I did. So they saw it as a step forward because they wanted to unify. This was the Xorg one, and then they have a different one under Wayland. They saw it as a simplification, and likely it is, but also will they ever add back in these features? I had asked that question and then basically was told, no, it's unlikely. So in that case, they deprecated this in favor of the live input Wayland. And yeah, so it kind of, it affected me in that way, that it just made it more difficult to do something that before for me was 2 clicks and I was done. So it does happen. And that's, I guess, a complaint you could make. Let's say the stability of something like XFCE, which doesn't change very often, you can count on the fact that it works a certain way and that it's just going to be that way. It's sort of a static known good, versus KDE, where they're going to bring in new things. And as they bring in new things, they kind of have to refactor other things. And the unfortunate side effect is that sometimes those things that you were using now are different or not there or something. So, all right, Bob, thanks for joining us. Take care. Okay. So a couple things I can't really show. Well, if I had cursor files, I guess I'd see a preview. And then if I'm using a chat app, then it looks like I can reply right here. Very nice. And I think we're at the top. We are. Okay. So I mentioned night color control, how that shows up if you are using it. They added it as a system tray applet. Very nice. Renaming files in the context menu. Very nice. More on Eliza, nothing I can really show there. Yeah, these tags again, this wasn't quite working. Like I was saying, yeah, it just doesn't seem like, and maybe it's, try. No, sometimes if it's open, so Dolphin actually did close itself down. So looks like just maybe that's not working right now. So, oh well. And maybe that file type, maybe it just doesn't work for that file type. So let me see if I can do it on a PDF. No. Nope, just doesn't seem like it's working right now. Oh well. So I'll be looking forward to testing that out over time, see if that gets any better. More on ELISA. Some bug fixes. Oh, the Plasma Vaults. This is one of those little ones, right? So I don't use Plasma Vaults, and so if there's but it would always just show here. And if you don't know how the system tray works, so you have the ability to pick which ones are active, right? So if I want, let's say, display configuration, if I click that, oh, that was probably a bad idea. Maybe. Did I kill the stream with that one? No? Okay. So, oh, found a crash. You know what though? So I'm actually kind of glad that happened. Someone was asking me earlier today think it was in the Kubuntu support Telegram group about one of the differences I found between GNOME and Plasma is Plasma just crashed, right? The entire shell just crashed and came back. And you saw how fast it did that, right? And not only did it crash and come back, but everything's still here, exactly where I left it, right? Nothing died. All the Plasma died, but all of the apps stayed open. Everything's still here. OBS is still running. Everything's, on GNOME, when it crashes, none of if I'd just been on GNOME and that crash happened, this stream would have been done. I mean, all of this would, like, none of these applications would be open. And that's, again, I love using GNOME on my laptop, and I accept the fact that that could happen, and I'm careful about making sure I save things as I'm editing and stuff like that. It does not happen often, but when it does happen, it is catastrophic in terms of a failure versus what you just saw happen on Plasma, which was big whoop. Like, oh, well, it crashed and I can send my crash report and get on with my life. So that's absolutely, to me, a huge difference. And again, when I go back to that conversation about what should I run on a workstation, or what would I consider to be more stable, I guess, or more reliable, and that is what you just saw, is why I say that Plasma is more stable and reliable than GNOME. Anyway, what I was trying to explain was, under System Tray, you can select which items are active, and then under the entries, you pick the visibility and whether it's auto, shown, or hidden. So the auto mode for vaults meant that it was always visible. And so I could have come in there and said hidden, which I did normally, but it's nice that, they recognize that if you're not using them, then that this works, that not showing it is a better option. So very cool. One of those small things that maybe I'm the only person that actually cared, but I assume someone else did if he made that change. Wallpaper chooser, push buttons in Plasma. Yeah. So there you go. And this is not the last we're going to see, because they're still continuing. They're squashing bugs. You're probably not going to see big features at this point. My guess is you're going to maybe see some smaller little add-on things like this night color system tray component thing. You're going to see things like that, but my guess is at this point they probably want to get closer to less features and more bug fixes. The commitment that I've seen is that this is going to be available for the LTS release of, Kubuntu and other desktops as well, or other distros as well. So again, this being an LTS, I think they've sort of run into that, started down that path of like, let's solidify what we have and be ready for this to be as solid as possible. So, yeah. Well, I have exhausted my list here. I hope that you, oh, I haven't. I'm sorry. I lied. I do have one more thing. So I mentioned the kickoff menu, and we talked about some of the accessibility problems potentially with this, and the idea of alternatives. So I showed you the alternative tray here. So there have been alternative menus for quite a while. And so we've got application dashboard, which I'm not sure that many people like. It kind of gives you this sort of Unity-esque, maybe, I don't know, maybe a little touch of GNOME in there. But again, just sort of a full screen dashboard. You've got the launcher, which is the kickoff menu. The one I normally use is application menu. It's just a very simple simple menu gives you some nice shortcuts down the side, and it's much more direct in terms of I can get to the category I want and find what I'm looking for. Lists my recent applications and documents. So very useful, simple, and it works very well. And Chip already guessed where I was heading with this. Neon does not have this added by default. So when you look at your alternatives here, you don't see it as a default option. But there is a simple menu widget, which I'll just go ahead and add. And it's not here by default, so I actually have to go in and get new widgets, download, and install. Now I can add simple menu, and I will get rid of the normal menu. And so now what I have, this is simple menu. And this is what they're looking at very, very seriously in KDE as being the default instead of the kickoff menu. One, we talked about the accessibility, but also just the more sort of direct nature of this menu instead of kind of all that other. And this also is very similar, much more similar to other desktop environments in terms of a, I guess more straightforward menu. And it's very nice. It's very clean. So what you see by default when you open it is the favorites. So as I add more favorites, they would populate on the screen. And then if I scroll my mouse or if I click the indicator there, I'll get to alphabetically all applications, and I can go through it that way. And the other nice thing is, as I hover over these categories, it's populating them, and you see it's very quick, so it's very, slick and easy to use. And I can also search the menu, and it'll give me my options, which is great. I have my shortcuts for logging out, power option, locking the screen, restart, power off. So just some quick shortcuts there. Now, Farron already has this as his default menu, and I think he may have actually made some changes to the layout on here. I'm not entirely sure. I'd have to go back and double check, but he's already been using this, and then Kubuntu has it as an option as well. And what you saw me do there by adding that widget was actually not really necessary. So if I come back here, it knew that whenever I added that it was an alternative. So if I come back and look now, you see I have my other application options, and then I also have simple menu just incorporated itself in there. So I didn't actually have to do that step. I forgot that I didn't have to, but so I can still switch back and forth. And so I like the simple menu because I like this easier menu already. I like having the recent applications. I like having recent documents. I do like some of the capabilities here that aren't in simple menu, but I would be perfectly, whereas I would not be happy using, and I'm never happy really using kickoff. It's just not for me. I could see myself being reasonably happy and just fine with simple menu because, it's just a very clean, usable experience. Maybe they'll extend this at some point. The features, the configuration options are pretty limited at this point. Just basically showing what the application name is, changing that, whether or not you want to hover to switch or click to switch, and whether or not you want to include the search results, bookmarks, files, and emails. So it is simple by design. Maybe they'll add some more capabilities and extend it a little bit to make it just a little more robust. I would maybe just like to see a few more things in there, but so I'll keep my eye on it, and I certainly don't dislike it, and I think it shows a lot of promise. I like that KDE is looking at a different default option, because I do think kickoff is not the greatest experience. But for now, I'll probably keep using this just because I'm used to it, and I really this is the perfect set of features that I want out of a menu. And so there you go. I think that was the last thing that I really had to talk about. And so I know this was a long stream. There was a lot to cover, which just speaks to how much is in the 5.18 release. And I didn't even go through a lot of the stuff that was in there. Those were just high level. And obviously I got sidetracked, as I always do. But there is just so much coming out, and it's really exciting to see the progress. See the progress that the KDE team's made, and just continues to deliver amazing results. Just really good stuff. So check back in on chat, but then I think I am about done for the evening. Joe, hey, good to see you. Glad you made it. And Joe says, in my opinion, KDE Plasma or Kubuntu, which would be more a business-minded distro. Would you agree with that? So Kubuntu, Kubuntu itself, yeah. It's funny because oh my god, Ubuntu did an article, I think it was today, about Windows 7 top 5 Windows 7 alternatives in Linux distros, and he chose KDE Neon over Kubuntu for the KDE distro recommendation. I was kind of surprised by that. I think Kubuntu, I mean, yes, I think it's more of a, I mean, KDE, I guess, in you could see that as being a more, I think it's a more utility focused, whether that's business specific or not. I'm not entirely sure, but in terms of just out of the box experience, I still contend that Kubuntu does the best job for Plasma. Manjaro is a very close second right now, looking at that 19.0 preview. I mean, that KDE desktop is pretty solid. They've done a great job there as well. So Neon is so vanilla. And I think that the vanilla KDE Plasma experience is not ideal, not the greatest. I don't think it looks as good as it can. I don't think it's set up as good as it can be. There's just a lot of things that I think last mile that Kubuntu and Manjaro and others are doing that make KDE Plasma really shine in a way that it doesn't on Neon. So I was kind of surprised that they recommended that. But if I had a customer, let's say, that wanted a replacement on their Windows 7 computer for a Linux alternative for Windows 7 on their computers, I would absolutely go with a Plasma-based desktop. I mean, whatever distro that might be, the Plasma. I mean, it would almost certainly be Kubuntu, but if it was for some reason had to be some other distro, I would still want Plasma probably as the desktop environment of choice. Simply because I could replicate whatever environment they were comfortable with, layout, settings, stuff like that. But I would feel confident knowing that if they came to me and said, it does this thing that I don't like, or I wish it could do this, Plasma has all of these capabilities built in that it would let you make likely whatever change they're looking for, right? So it would give you that configurability. I just, I mean, for as much as I love Cinnamon and think that Linux Mint would be a good option, Cinnamon has lots of options, but certainly not as many as Plasma. And so, and just the stability, like you saw, the shell crash and it came right back. And there, I feel like it would be such a solid choice, that it's kind of a no brainer for me, in that sense. So yeah, absolutely. If I had someone I had to support, I would probably think Plasma is the best bet for that. So yeah, I think with that, yes, Leviticus Farron OS is a great option. We're testing that for Biddle this week. Just curious to see what folks come up with there. And so, how many people are still watching this, I wonder? I know some of you are here. 20 people. You crazy people. Oh, can you? It looks like it's spinning on me in here. I don't know if oh, okay. Hey pizza, good to see you. Actually, I'll tell you what. I'll go for a few more minutes and we'll do some more chat. I just need. So, okay, Joe, I will buy that. As much as you like Ubuntu, you think there's can be too over the top, having too many features. Fair enough. Um, do you have a preference? Because I know you build systems for folks. What do you put on those systems, or if someone asks you for a recommendation, instead of, let's say, Kubuntu, obviously because it's Plasma, but do you have a preference? And pizza, streams, they are what they are. They're hit or miss. I mean, the first stream I did, I was amazed that I think I ended up with maybe 5 or 6 people, and that continued probably for the first several I did. Part of it, Rose is absolutely right. I was terrible about announcing it, and even tonight, I only gave half an hour's notice. 40 minutes. I didn't announce it on Twitter or anything. So the only people that saw it were my subscribers on YouTube. I mean, it was really last minute. I wasn't I was gonna do this as a video, and I just figured I haven't streamed in like it's been a very long time since I streamed, and so I thought, you know what, I have the time to do it tonight, and I thought it would be fun to do this as an interactive thing where I could talk to people as I'm going through it. I try to stay away from those longer videos where there's a lot of content to cover. They can be fine, but it's there are times where it ends up being just too I don't know. I feel like it drones on too long. Like I put in the section, the timestamp so people can jump around, but it's really I try to stay away from longer videos because I just feel like it's too much of a commitment. It I feel like it's presumptuous to expect someone to watch a half an hour or more. I mean, even if it's an interesting topic, it's just a lot, you know. Especially if it's something where you expect them to be watching the screen the whole time. And yeah, people can watch it in pieces, and the timestamps help. But if I can break it down into smaller pieces, I will. Or if it's something like this that's just going to take a long time to get through, then maybe it's better suited to do it on a stream. Pizza, my stuff is awful. My edited stuff isn't great, and my streams I think are absolutely horrendous most of the time. I think I make some good points, but yeah, I cough. I'm mumbling, and I can't read and talk at the same time. I don't think they're particularly great quality, but I appreciate that people come and, check them out anyway. And hopefully some of the information that's in here is useful. I get people who participate in the stream. What amazes me is people who watch streams later. And that's not I mean, I'm happy that people do. Obviously, I want folks to be able to get something out of it, not just if they weren't here, especially if I did a bad job of announcing it. But it always surprises me that people will watch streams later. And I guess it's better because you can skip through it. Maybe you speed it up, skip through it, whatever makes sense. So Joe says, if they are totally new, I would offer Peppermint 10, Mint, Vanilla Ubuntu. You don't think Ubuntu is confusing to someone who's coming from something that's coming from Windows? Vanilla Ubuntu, I would think. So Peppermint I get, and Mint I get because the desktop paradigm is pretty familiar. But yeah, Vanilla Ubuntu, I think might be a little, I don't know. I think if I put my wife or someone, less technical in front of Ubuntu Vanilla, that it would probably be a little too, I mean, not as bad as just Vanilla GNOME, because I think that's just totally disarming. People don't know what to do. There's nothing on the screen. So Ubuntu rectifies a lot of that by having a dock and system tray and different things like that, but it's still very different. So. Watch some of Sudo Reboot's streams. I dig his streams. They're fun. But that's the thing about streams, right? I mean, as someone who tries to make like quality, quality is the wrong word, refined content where it's like put together, and I don't want gaps in there, and I don't want flubs, and I'm trying to make it clear and quick and easy, just real simple to watch and pick up. Streaming is frustrating sometimes because things go wrong. It's so hard to control real time what's going on, and it goes against my nature of wanting to put together really polished stuff. But I love streams because they are that way. Me putting on the stream is kind of sometimes stressful, but watching other people's streams is fun because it's the nature of the beast. It can be completely crazy and all over the place, and it's fun, right? It's way more engaging and interactive than a video ever could be. Even with comments and stuff like that, it's all after things are happening. The rapport, the feedback, collaborative aspect of it. Like those are all the really good parts of streaming. And I feel like maybe if I could relax and just enjoy it more, that it would be better. But yeah, Sudo Reboot, Steve's, I love Steve's streams. They're fun. I think it's like a lot of things, right? When you're not the one running the controls, it's fun to be along for the ride. But when you feel like I messed up something, or it just, and maybe it's just me personally, but I literally sometimes will just sweat because I'm like, I'm messing this up so badly. You sound, Leviticus says, relax and enjoy it. I sound like I freebase peanut butter when I talk. You know, it's just a personal thing. And I don't do this very often. If I did it more often, maybe I would just be more relaxed and, I don't know, not put pressure on myself. So, Ali says thing about live streams is just go with the flow. Yeah. And Ali, your streams are the same way. Like it's conversational. You're just going through it and hopefully enjoy it. So, me being me is fun to watch. I don't know. I don't know about that. I appreciate that you think so. Oh my. Joe likes Pop! OS too, but I think that it confuses a newbie more than vanilla Ubuntu with the Unity look. I agree with that. Yeah, Pop! OS and Pop! OS does things differently enough that it's not as straightforward. Like, so when you think of supportability and maybe someone running into a problem you haven't seen on Ubuntu or any of the really mainstream distros, you're likely going to find answers. And not that a lot of that doesn't apply to Pop because it is a Ubuntu based distro, but they've started to make, they're diverging enough. They're starting to do things different enough that now the last time I ran Pop, things became Pop specific much more than just Ubuntu specific than they had been in the past. So um, yeah, and need to fire up Discord. Yeah, I've done that. I've actually done that voice back chat, which is great. I didn't really plan this tonight, which is I guess another failing of mine on streaming is that if I would just think about it a little further ahead, um, it just occurred to me a few hours, 3-4 hours ago. I was like, maybe I should do a stream, and I didn't think about it. Well, what what should I do for the stream? It was just like I'm gonna do Plasma, and I'm just gonna jump on there. And you weren't here earlier, but the other part of this is I'm actually on Neon Unstable right now, and I literally installed it 20 minutes before I started streaming. So I had to get the system installed, all the updates. The NVIDIA driver doesn't come by default, so I had to get that on there. And I had to install OBS. I had to get all of my uh, logins and my browser together. I had to get YouTube. I basically set myself up that I didn't start on time because I was literally last second getting everything put together. So the fact that this stream has not crashed and things have actually gone pretty well is a testament to, even though this is Neon Unstable, it's on the Ubuntu, LTS base. So there's that. And then also, hey, it can't be that unstable because, it did crash once. And I have seen a couple of things that aren't working, but, here I am, almost 3 hours in almost, and still working. Sky Bear, what's happening, man? I'm chatting about myself. um, Joe, at least Ubuntu has a panel taskbar. Yeah. Well, and that's my thing. So I've been really enjoying Ubuntu 19.10, and I think there's a couple things really. One is Ubuntu fixes most of the issues that I have with Vanilla GNOME, and fixing them in a way that it's doing the things that I would have already done. Dash to dock to give me a dock, and I actually like the dock on the side. Um, app indicator icons, which is actually a KDE framework thing. But it's adding the system tray back in. I actually remove the desktop icons because I don't want them. I don't use desktop icons anymore. It's a crutch for me. It's just a dumping ground. It's like that messy drawer, where you just throw everything. And if I can resist the temptation to have the messy drawer to just throw everything on, then I have to, it makes me think, where do I actually want this file to be? And then I put it where it belongs. So it saves me a step of just dumping everything. Because on Windows, I mean, I would just literally, anything I'm saving, I would just dump it on the desktop, and then I just have a mess. And I didn't like it. It made more work for me in the long run. So anyway, so I take off the desktop icons, but having the dock, having the icons, I don't care what anyone says. I don't care what GNOME says. I don't care what Elementary says. I need that system tray because the applications I use expect it to be there. And when it's not there, they don't work right. And I can't use my computer the way it's supposed to be used. And that is not an acceptable situation. Elementary, they said, well, you have to talk to the app developers and they have to support a different means of, or that it was insecure. There were a couple of excuses for it. And fine. then I can't use your system because it doesn't work the way it needs to work, at least for me. So Ubuntu fixes those things for me. And the other thing, I know this is a little probably polarizing, is the Yaru theme is really grown on me. The tones, the contrast, things just look really crisp, very clean. The font settings on my laptop in particular, a 15-inch display at 1920 by 1080, it just looks better than anything else I've put on it in the last year. And so yeah, it really kind of grabbed me and hooked me in. And I dual boot it, and I'll have another, I have Manjaro KDE on there right now, and I'll play with it. I'll use it. I've got it all set up, and it's fine. I love Plasma, but there's just something about Ubuntu 1910 right now that just grabbed me, and I can't quite get away from it. So, let's see. Yeah, Pizza Lovin'. Yeah, use PK Con instead of apt. Yep, you're absolutely right. So Neon does do things a little differently. Neon's a weird distro. I mean, it in terms of being there for you to do stuff like I'm doing here and testing, it's perfect for that. I mean, 100%. It's I love that it exists, but the using it as just a base system for general use desktop, I'm not exactly sure. I've just never seen it as being, I don't know. There's very few applications. It's on an older base. It's got some weird differences. Yeah, it's kind of like how Mint is, where, apt is an apt. Apt is actually a Python wrapper around an older version of apt-get, and it doesn't support like a lot of the commands I use on apt, which just always bugs me. It's based on Ubuntu, but it's different enough that it's almost annoying because I'm so used to the way that Ubuntu works that whenever I use it, it doesn't work the way I expect. And so more or less it gets in my way. So Neon, fantastic for this. It's completely stable. There's no reason I wouldn't, like Joe, your point about what would you, for a business or for a supported desktop, like I totally get the stability of Neon. So, I'm not saying it doesn't have merit, but for me, I just don't know why I would ever choose to run Neon over Kubuntu or Plasma on Arch or OpenSUSE or any other option. So, wait until Mitchell release his version of an updated Hannah Montana. Yeah, well, if anyone could pull it off, I think Mitchell could do it. Do like Present Arms, we can sidetrack you as easily as him going down a rabbit hole. Well, when I'm in the chat portion, it's up to you guys to direct the conversation. So I'm happy to go down any rabbit holes that you you put in front of me. Hey there, Skybear. Pizza's working on an Arch distro? Really? That's interesting. I think I'd seen you say something about that, but I wasn't sure. So what will be the virtues of it then? So here's my thing. If it's got to have some kind of differentiation, right? I think of the Arch-based distros, and you've got Arco Linux, which Eric does all of that stuff with customization and Arco Linux and D and B and like all the different variants of it. So there's a lot there to dig into in all of his videos and all of that. And then you've got Manjaro, which is Arch based, but they have their own repositories and their own tool set and their own desktop theming. And it's very highly customized and very much Manjaro's world. And then you have Endeavor, which is much closer to Arch with some theming and some, the net installer now. And they're starting to differentiate themselves a little bit more, but ultimately it's very close to Arch. So I'm wondering what you're doing. What are you working on there, pizza? Yeah, Joe, the ad printer. Yeah, I know. It, it's I as I get older, and I've said this before, and not trying to make it sound like I guess I'm whatever. As I get older, my appetite for tinkering and playing around with things has become, especially whenever it's not by my choice, it becomes that threshold has gotten much lower than it used to be. I used to love nothing more than just fixing a problem. So when things broke, it was like, oh, great, this is an opportunity for me to learn something or fix a problem. And the last time I was running Arch, for example, I had been running it for probably over a month and had never had to print anything. So cups wasn't installed, Guten print, like none of the stuff was installed. So I had to install it. And then I had to add my user and then I had to configure it. And it took me the better part of half an hour just to get ready, just to install everything, just so I could print. And it was like, you know what? This is why I use Ubuntu, because I don't have to do all this heavy lifting myself. I know how to do it. I'm not proving anything by installing cups and adding a printer. There's no value to that for me. It's just time. It's wasted time. So if you don't know how to do it and you want to run Arch and learn all those things, fantastic. Or run Manjaro because they have already put all that stuff in there. And this is nothing against Arch. I have no problem with that. It's just that that's not the experience I want. And that's why I love Ubuntu, because, somebody's done that work for me and I benefit from it. And the next time I want to print something, like Joe said, even if it's a fresh install, if I've got a network printer out there somewhere, it already knows about it and it's got it. It's got it there. I go file print, boom. Hard to argue with that. I'm sorry. And it's not just Joe said peppermint was the same. That kind of stuff. And you're right. I mean, it's definitely not just Ubuntu proper, but other downstream distros as well can benefit from that. Pizza can't live without a system tray. I agree. Yarrow looks amazing. Yep, absolutely. Why are people still trying out Hannah? Even you know what? Hannah Montana will never die. It's just one of those things that's gonna move forward with us. Oh my. I I know I hate I hate the dead air, but I cannot talk and read at the same time. I guess I wouldn't be good with a teleprompter. Larry says, do I use an LTS release? I have. And it really, to me, an LTS release depends on the hardware. So if I'm on a system that is not a newer system and I don't need the hardware enablement stuff and I can run an older kernel and not have any problems with, hardware compatibility issues, then yeah, LTS is perfectly fine. And I'll tell you the big reason why that's not a problem for me anymore is LTS used to be a problem because I wanted access to newer packages. And I'm talking, many years ago before universal package formats. So in a world before snaps, in a world before snaps and flatpaks, and before app images and before a lot of the PPAs existed and stuff like that, like an LTS release was difficult to run if you wanted to run up-to-date software, especially like right now where we're at the end of a LTS cycle. So if you're running 1804, and a lot of those packages now are very old, right? And then you can also say like Debian, if you're running, the older stable release of Debian, like you're running old stuff. And that might be okay if if you don't mind those older packages, or there isn't some advantage to running a newer one. But what has changed all of that for me is having universal package formats where I can just flat pack install something, or I can, go out and to Snap or to get an app image. There's so many different ways to get the applications that I want to run and have the latest versions of, because there's some advantage for me doing that. Or in some cases, depending on the application, they expect, like if it's a web service or if it's an online application, in a lot of cases, they'll only let you run the older ones for so long before the features become deprecated, or they just won't even connect anymore because something's that different on the back end. So it could be problematic if you're stuck on that older software. So for me, and the other thing, I mean, in the old days, I would also just compile things, right? If I had to, I would just go download the source code and compile it. The problem with that is that then, you're stuck maintaining it. And if there's a security update or something that, you now have to be the one to manage that. So, yeah, an LTS release now is really not that big of a deal. Like I said, it comes down to the hardware. If it runs well on the hardware, then you're not locked into just using older packages. And given the freedom of that, an LTS release is perfectly fine. If I had an older piece of hardware and an LTS, I think, and didn't want the churn of updates and newer packages, yeah, I mean, LTS is great. I personally don't run them because the hardware I'm using, I have, a Ryzen system, and I've got, hybrid graphics and a newer Dell laptop, and those just don't run particularly well on the LTS kernels and on the, even with the hardware enablement stuff. And I know I can change kernels and make it work, but it just works better with a point release or a rolling release. The other distro I've got on this workstation is OpenSUSE Tumbleweed. And it's, the potential is there for something to go wrong, but because it's Btrfs and I have Snapper and I can always roll back if I make an update and something breaks. The other thing is Tumbleweed has a versioning system, snapshots, and you can choose which ones to upgrade to based on, they actually have a score system that they keep track of. And so each release, you can actually see what the quality score is, and choose to upgrade or not. So, so that's kind of an interesting approach that they have, because it's both rolling, but with snapshots where you can choose and actually go back between them. So let's say you update to a new snapshot and some program doesn't work, then you can always, roll it back and it'll just push back to the different package set. So it's very conditional, but I don't generally run LTSs because of that. So Joe says, my home printers install easily, but even they require more steps than my wife's commercial office printer. It's not that surprising, because if you think about the use case for the Linux desktop, I would expect enterprise to be a bit of a focus, right? And it's not just Ubuntu, that's going to be Red Hat, other, enterprise focused desktops. So that printing backend cups and kind of all of that stuff is, everybody's contributing to that project. So, Pizza says the only reason I use Arch is new packages. Yeah. And it's a huge advantage. Absolutely. It's nice to be able to just use your default package manager and get the latest version of something, and in Arch, there's almost no question that very soon after something's released, it's there. So, all right, Rose, thanks for joining. I appreciate it. It's always good to see you here. And I hope to see you again. We'll probably meet up in someone else's chat before too long. So take care. And I myself am very close to the 3-hour mark. Let's see what it says. I am at 2 hours and 53 minutes. I'm going to go to 3 hours. So we're going to go another 6.5 minutes here, and then I'm going to call it. But I really appreciate everybody joining, and this is the fun part of the stream. All right, when I can just converse and be lighthearted and not take it too seriously, it's when I feel like I'm trying to be credible and explain something in a coherent way that makes sense to someone. That's when I think I get a little, nervous and flustered. So Chris says, I do like Tumbleweed, but really Ubuntu has become my home. Yeah, Chris, it's interesting because I've tried Tumbleweed and even Leap, just OpenSUSE in general, on my laptop, and it never quite feels right. Whereas, Ubuntu and even Arch and they all run really well on my laptop, and there's something about OpenSUSE that just for that machine doesn't work great. But this workstation, this Ryzen system, it seems to work very well. So it's not perfect, and there's definitely a lot of differences. I've already run into a couple goofy things with their NVIDIA driver and support for like NVENC and hardware decoding. It works, but there's something weird. I had to change permissions on some things, on some system files, and it's not smooth. Like there's some rough edges there. But I'm really trying not to just give in to that urge to nuke it and move on to something. I want to try to stick with it a little bit and see, because it has so much good to it, so Chip, thank you. Good night. Thanks for joining. I'm glad that you were able to stop by. And Joe, yes, pastry shop. Next time you're around, let me know. I don't know how often you get down here, but if you show back up, let me know. I'll get you some delicious pastry. So, Leviticus, thank you, sir. Good to see you. You always add interesting things to the conversation. I always appreciate that about you, Leviticus. So, thanks for joining. Yeah, Ali. I don't see me beating your 5-hour stream anytime soon. I'm at 3 hours. my sit bones are ready to not be sitting here anymore. I'm ready to move on. I'm enjoying it. I really enjoyed talking to you guys, but yeah, just 5 hours. Oh boy. You have greater stamina than me, sir. You're crazy old bat. You know what? Crazy's good. Crazy is good. All right. We're at the 3-minute mark. 2:57. If this was Biddle, someone would bring up a really good topic right about now, and then we'd have no time to discuss it. Right? Isn't that how that works? So, anyway, at the end of the stream, I hope I gave you some reasons to want to look at Plasma if you haven't recently. Also, some anticipation for the upcoming release. The cool part is that, of course, this is going to be an LTS release, and it's going to be part of Ubuntu 20.04, and also some other distros as part of their LTS release cycle. And I think that's really cool that they've made so many changes and so many, just so much polish. I mean, if you look at the difference between the 1804 Ubuntu LTS and what's in 5.18, I mean, yeah, I know it's been 2 years just about, and you'd expect to see some progress, but I mean, they've made the comparison between 5.16 and 5.18 is huge, and the 5.50. So if you reach all the way back to, LTS Ubuntu,
or their last, the LTS release. It's pretty incredible to see just how much that they've accomplished. And so, they just do amazing work. And by and large, what comes out is relatively bug free. I mean, the stability of Plasma in general has become, it's almost unquestionable, right? And I do hear some people have crashes and stuff, and you saw on an unstable release tonight that I had a crash. But if I'm just using Kubuntu, I literally cannot remember the last time. Maybe an application crashes, sure. I mean, they do, but I mean, the whole shell, like it just doesn't happen. And it certainly did early days in the 5 series. We're so far beyond that now, and the quality of stuff that's coming out of the team is really pretty incredible. So, you know, thank you and congratulations to the KDE team and everyone who's behind this excellent work. And we will all benefit from their efforts, and it leads us to this excellent long-term support release. And Chip, I know you're gone, but to your question about LTSs, absolutely 2004 from an LTS standpoint is something I could see running, for years to come. Because I just feel like it's going to be not just Kubuntu, but Ubuntu and all these other flavors. It's just going to be a really, really strong release, and maybe the best LTSs that have ever come out of Canonical. So, all right. I think I have officially, yes, 3 hours and 12 seconds. So with that, I want to thank everyone again for joining, listening to my silly ramblings, and hopefully you had a good time and learned something, and maybe just had a good time. Who knows? Or you learned something and you didn't have a good time. However it worked, hopefully you got something from it. I appreciate you joining me. I will maybe do this a little more often than I have been, and hopefully you can join me then as well. So with that, have a fantastic night or morning or day or wherever you are, as Steve would say. And I'll see you again soon. Take care, everyone.